I tried to strangle her, but I couldn't stomach it, so I shot her in the chest instead. This horrifying confession wasn't made to police. It was whispered to a brother who would ultimately turn him in. The killer? Jonathan Quiles, a trusted uncle who had helped raise his victim since she was a child. His victim was 16-year-old Iyanna Sawyer, 5 months pregnant, honor student, and completely defenseless against the man who claimed to love her like a daughter. Quiles didn't just murder Iyanna, he executed her unborn baby, dumped both bodies in a dumpster, then went to a shooting range to cover his tracks. But here's what makes this case even more twisted. Iyanna trusted Jonathan so completely that she willingly got in his car that December morning. She thought they were running away together. Instead, he drove her to her execution. This is how a family guardian became a family destroyer. Iyanna Sawyer lived the kind of life most teenagers dream about. Honor student, close with her mom Kimberly Mobley, protective of her younger sister. She wanted to be a doctor or lawyer, had the grades for both. But at 16, Iyanna carried a secret that would cost her everything. She was pregnant. 5 months along, she'd recently told her mother about the baby. The family had even picked out a name, Hazel Michelle. They were supportive, ready to help raise the child. But there was one question that haunted everyone. Who was the father? Iyanna wasn't talking. Before we continue, if real-life family crime grips you, hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and smash subscribe with the bell so you never miss a new case. The Sawyer family was tight-knit, the kind where aunts and uncles stepped in as second parents. Iyanna and her sister spent summers at their Aunt Naomi and Uncle John's house. Pool parties, beach trips, family dinners. Uncle John, Jonathan Quiles, was the cool relative. Mechanic, handyman, always ready with a joke or helping hand. His wife Naomi adored the girls. They had their own kids, another on the way. Picture perfect family, or so everyone thought. That December morning started normal. Iyanna attended her first few classes, then something changed. Around 11 a.m., security cameras caught her leaving school. She walked out voluntarily, no signs of struggle, no indication of fear. She carried those 2 bags like she was going on a trip. She never made it to the bus. When her younger sister called home frantic, "Iyanna's not here, this isn't like her," panic set in. Kimberly Mobley was at work. She called her sisters immediately. One called 911, the other raced to the school.
Jacksonville 911, what's the location of your emergency?
Do not come home to school today, so phone is going straight to voicemail. It's not like that.
Okay.
You have no idea what you...
This is out of character for her, the family told dispatchers. Something's wrong. They were right. Police initially treated it as a runaway case. 16-year-old pregnant girl, maybe scared about becoming a mother. But then Iyanna's mom started digging through her daughter's room, her laptop, anything that might give them a clue. What she found changed everything.
How do you get to it? Tell me how you get to it.
I went there in the recycler bin right here.
The recycle bin?
And then she also got other notes over here on the side. If they asked you for a password, she got some of the notes locked. And she got other stuff that she wrote in here about him too, though.
Hidden in the computer's recycle bin was a password-protected document. Pages and pages of emotional writing about someone named Jose. Love letters, really? Passionate, desperate, talking about betrayal and heartbreak? The entries were dated months earlier, around February and March. But here's the thing. Iyanna's mom had never heard her mention anyone named Jose. The mystery deepened when police looked into Iyanna's recent past. Around the time those diary entries were written, she'd been involved with a neighbor, Kamar Humphrey. He was an adult, she was 15. Her mother had insisted on a rape kit back in March. DNA confirmed they'd had sexual contact, and under Florida law, he was registered as a sexual offender. Could Humphrey be Jose? Could he be the father of Iyanna's baby? When police questioned him about December 19th, Humphrey had an airtight alibi. He was out of town, had receipts to prove it. They had to rule him out. So if Kamar Humphrey wasn't Jose, who was? That's when Iyanna's younger sister dropped a bombshell. "That's Uncle John," she said simply. "Jose is what we call Uncle John." Uncle John, Jonathan Quiles, the man who'd helped raise these girls, who'd taken them on family vacations, who they trusted like a father. Jose wasn't a stranger. Jose was family. Police wasted no time getting to the Quiles house. When they arrived, Jonathan was calm, almost too calm. He invited them in, offered them food and drinks, acted like having patrol cars in his driveway was just another day.
What's going on?
This is crazy.
All
Stuff
this just got
just
dropped
happened,
on
yeah.
me. Like
both of us. I was just trying to get
Just
a
got
damn
dropped.
guy to sign a lease over here, and I'm coming back. I see patrol cars in my dang house.
We're trying to find her the same way you are, he told officers. His wife Naomi backed him up completely.
We literally had their kids, her kids, for summers. You know, summer at a time, and then, you know, weekends. All of them. If we knew where she was at, we would have been the first ones to grab her ass and bring her over.
Yeah, exactly.
We're posting stuff on our Facebook trying to find her the same way they are.
Do I think my husband is capable of any of this? No, I don't. They consented to a full search of the house. Jonathan sat outside, chatting with officers like they were old friends. Come on in, whatever you need. You want something to eat? But then something odd happened. When officers asked about missing items belonging to Iyanna, Naomi mentioned that when the girl left, she took a lot of her Victoria's Secret undergarments. Jonathan got specific, real specific. Yeah, her 38 pairs, he said. 38 pairs. He knew exactly how many pieces of underwear his 16-year-old niece owned. How does a family member know details like that? The answer was becoming clearer, and it was making everyone uncomfortable. Now here's where Jonathan Quiles made his first critical mistake. Police had been investigating another case involving Iyanna from months earlier, that neighbor Kamar Humphrey who had assaulted her back in March. They'd collected DNA evidence then, including an unknown sample that didn't match Humphrey. When detectives ran Jonathan's DNA against that unknown sample, they got a hit. Jonathan Quiles' DNA was found on Iyanna's underwear from 9 months before she disappeared. The man who'd been playing caring uncle had been sexually abusing his niece for months. That DNA match turned Jonathan from a person of interest into the prime suspect. Police knew they had their man, but they needed more evidence. They needed a confession. They got one, but not from Jonathan directly. January 7th, 2019. The phone rings at Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. The caller identifies himself as Joseph Quiles, Jonathan's own brother. What he's about to tell them will break this case wide open. My brother called me, Joseph says, his voice shaking. He was frantic. Said this girl might be pregnant, might be his. Said he had to get rid of the body. Joseph explains how Jonathan called him twice that December. First call, panicked, desperate, talking about pregnancy and ruined lives. Second call, calm, collected, like he'd just finished taking out the trash. He told me exactly what he did, Joseph continues. He lured her to his work where there were no cameras. Tried to strangle her first but couldn't go through with it. So he shot her instead. Then he put her body in a dumpster. Think about that for a moment. Jonathan Quiles was so proud of murdering his pregnant niece that he called his brother to brag about it. He described the killing in detail, talked about disposal methods, even mentioned destroying evidence. But Joseph Quiles did something that would destroy his brother forever. He turned him in. I'd rather lose my brother than let that girl's family suffer, Joseph told police. Armed with this devastating testimony, detectives brought Jonathan back in for another interview. This time, they weren't asking general questions. They had his DNA. They had his brother's statement. They had him cornered. Jonathan walked into that interview room thinking he was smarter than everyone else. He'd covered his tracks, cleaned up the evidence, played the grieving uncle perfectly. What he didn't realize was that his own arrogance had already sealed his fate. The interview starts casual enough. Detectives let Jonathan tell his story again. How close he was to the family. How much he loved those girls. How devastated he was by Iyanna's disappearance.
Niece,
So if I were to tell you that I found some underwear that had your DNA in it, how would you explain that?
I would say that is not, there's no way in shape in any form. Okay. Yeah, there's no way.
So with the case across the street, there was a kit done.
Correct. She ran away or whatnot. Now here I am sitting in the hot seat because is mentioning me as that I was, I'm Mr. Jose.
Okay.
So.
Do you know who she ran away with?
I don't. I've been expecting call me, text me, anything. Snapchat me, smoke signal.
He's confident, almost cocky. This is just another performance. Then Detective Abbott drops the bomb. Jonathan, your DNA was found on Iyanna's underwear. Watch Jonathan's face change. The confidence drains away. The smooth talking stops. For the first time, he realizes he's not controlling this conversation anymore. That's impossible, he stammers. There's no way. 100% no way. But Abbott isn't done. He tells Jonathan about the brother's phone call, about the detailed confession, about how Joseph had turned him in to save a family's peace of mind. Jonathan tries to salvage the situation, claims his brother is lying, making things up, has mental problems. The desperate deflection of a man watching his world collapse in real time. Everyone's just circling me, Jonathan says. You've already made up your minds. He's right about one thing. They had made up their minds. The evidence was overwhelming. DNA proof of sexual assault, a detailed confession to his own brother, behavioral evidence showing he knew intimate details about Iyanna's clothing and disappearance. The interview ends with 6 words that changed everything. Jonathan, you're under arrest for sexual battery. But this was just the beginning. Police now knew they were dealing with a murderer, not just a missing person case. Jonathan Quiles had killed his pregnant niece, and they were going to prove it. The question wasn't whether he did it anymore. The question was how they were going to find enough evidence to put him away for life. Because remember, they still didn't have Iyanna's body. And without a body, proving murder becomes infinitely harder. Jonathan knew this. He was counting on it. He thought dumping Iyanna in that dumpster would make her disappear forever, along with all the evidence of what he'd done. What he didn't count on was his own mouth. In jail, Jonathan Quiles was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. He was going to keep talking. Here's something you need to understand about killers like Jonathan Quiles. They can't help themselves. They need to talk about what they've done. They need to feel important, to show how clever they were, to relive their crimes through storytelling. Jonathan was no exception. Detective Abbott knew this personality type well, so he set up something called a wire operation. They planted an undercover informant in Jonathan's jail pod, gave him recording equipment, and told him one simple thing: get Jonathan talking. It worked better than they could have imagined. The informant Jonathan befriended wasn't some hardened criminal. Ironically, it was another inmate from the jail's Bible study group. Jonathan felt comfortable around him, trusted him, saw him as a fellow believer seeking redemption. Big mistake. Within days, Jonathan was spilling everything, not just hints or vague admissions. Detailed confessions about exactly what he did to Iyanna and why.
Been praying for her? I've been praying. I haven't stopped praying. I've been praying this whole time. You have to forgive me? I can forgive you. If I do it, get rid of the body and all that. Why would they point the finger at you? Because of my brother. Now why did you kill them? If you didn't think she was gonna tell, or you just felt like it was gonna hit the fan and later on.
Yeah, she was 16 when she came off that she was pregnant. There's a possibility that was mine.
When you saw that, where happened?
It was on the job.
Oh, you shot at the job and left there overnight?
Loud.
This girl was jumped out screaming anything, so what about you?
The camera system, like everything blurry, nothing is focused. And that's the thing, the cameras do work, but they suspect. You know, the in AC part, there's so many spots you can throw shit over again.
I guess maybe you shouldn't have. You did the right thing, though, because you probably be in a worse situation than she was in.
Listen to how casual he sounds. No remorse, no guilt, no recognition that he's talking about a 16-year-old girl he helped raise. To Jonathan, Iyanna wasn't his niece anymore. She was just a problem he'd solved. Jonathan Quiles had been sexually abusing his teenage niece for months. When she got pregnant, possibly with his child, he saw her as a threat to his reputation rather than a victim who needed help. His solution? Murder her and her unborn baby. But Jonathan made one crucial error during these jailhouse conversations. He gave police specific details about the crime scene that only the killer would know. Details about timing, location, method, information that corroborated everything Joseph had already told them. Most importantly, he confirmed what police had suspected all along. This wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of panic. This was premeditated murder. Jonathan had planned exactly how to get Iyanna alone, where to kill her, and how to dispose of her body. He even talked about going to a shooting range afterward to fire his gun multiple times, hoping to mask the forensic evidence that it had been used in a murder. Every word Jonathan spoke in that jail cell was another nail in his coffin, and he had no idea he was being recorded. When Detective Abbott reviewed those tapes, he knew the case was solved. Jonathan Quiles had just confessed to murdering his pregnant niece in excruciating detail. Now they had everything they needed: DNA evidence, witness testimony from his brother, and Jonathan's own recorded admissions of guilt. The only thing left was finding Iyanna's body. Detective Abbott wasn't going to let Jonathan get away with hiding Iyanna forever. Based on the confessions, they knew exactly where to look. Ace Pick-A-Part, the auto salvage yard where Jonathan worked. The yard was massive, filled with crushed cars, scrap metal, and industrial equipment. If Jonathan had killed Iyanna there, finding evidence would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. But they had one advantage. Jonathan's recorded confession had given them specific details about where and when the murder happened. Security footage from December 19th showed Jonathan leaving work around the time Iyanna disappeared from school. His explanation? He was going to pick up parts near the airport, a 30-minute drive away. But here's the problem with that story. Jonathan couldn't be in two places at once. He couldn't pick up Iyanna from school and drive to the airport to get parts. The timing didn't work. What the footage also showed was Jonathan accessing an area of the salvage yard that was off-limits to most employees. An area with no security cameras. An area where nobody would hear a gunshot over the noise of industrial machinery. Police believe that's where Jonathan murdered Iyanna. After killing her, Jonathan allegedly put her body in one of the large industrial dumpsters that serviced the yard. On December 20th, the day after Iyanna disappeared, All American Garbage collected that dumpster and transported its contents to Otis Road landfill. Detective Abbott wasn't giving up. If Iyanna was in that landfill, he was going to find her. What followed was one of the most extensive searches in Jacksonville's history. Police spent over $1.5 million excavating the landfill, digging nearly 80 feet deep, moving thousands of tons of garbage over 3 weeks. They found clothing that might have belonged to Iyanna, Victoria's Secret items that matched what she was known to carry. But they couldn't definitively prove the items were hers, and more importantly, they never found her body. Jonathan's plan had worked. By dumping Iyanna in a dumpster headed for the landfill, he'd made her disappear almost completely. But not completely enough. Even without a body, prosecutors believed they had enough evidence to charge Jonathan Quiles with first-degree murder. They had his DNA, his brother's testimony, his jailhouse confessions, and circumstantial evidence placing him at the crime scene. On July 18, 2019, a grand jury agreed. Jonathan Quiles was indicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder, one for Iyanna, one for her unborn child, plus sexual battery. Under Florida law, both charges carried the possibility of the death penalty. Jonathan's response when they told him about the charges? Still playing innocent. "I have an attorney," he said calmly. "She doesn't want me talking without her present." Even facing the electric chair, Jonathan Quiles was still trying to control the narrative.
We met with the grand jury today on your case as well as several others, and you are being indicted on first-degree murder. The third count is going to be sexual battery. Okay? We need to advise you of that.
Okay.
All right. We would like to talk to you if you're willing to speak with us.
I have an attorney that's representing me. She doesn't want me to talk to nobody without her being present.
September 14th, 2023. 4 years after Iyanna Sawyer disappeared,
You swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, sir, so you're charged with an indictment. Count 1 is murder in the first degree, count 2 is murder in the first degree, count 3 is sexual battery.
Jonathan Quiles finally faced a jury. The man who thought he'd gotten away with murder was about to discover that his own words would destroy him. The charges were devastating: 2 counts of first-degree murder and sexual battery. Both murder charges carried the death penalty. Jonathan pleaded not guilty to everything, still maintaining his innocence even as evidence piled up around him. But prosecutors had something more powerful than physical evidence. They had Jonathan's own voice, recorded in jail, admitting to murder.
The state of Florida is banking on a strong slate of witnesses, along with purported admissions of guilt made by Jonathan Quiles himself to his brother and jailhouse informants.
The first witness was devastating. Naomi Mobley, Jonathan's ex-wife and Iyanna's aunt, took the stand looking broken.
I told him at that time that he needed to stop speaking with my nieces and he needs to give my family space. I said that it looks really bad and he needs to distance himself.
The woman who once defended her husband now painted a picture of a man who deceived everyone.
I learned after that he did in fact continue speaking with them.
So what are we looking at in state 64?
These are the messages from Snapchat.
Then came the Snapchat messages. Prosecutors displayed text after text between Jonathan and Iyanna in the months before her disappearance. Sexual, threatening, obsessive. One message read, "I'm very aggravated right now. I'm going to hit you later." Another, "I'm so in love with you. I'll kill you," and cry. The jury sat in stunned silence. This wasn't uncle-niece communication. This was predator-victim manipulation. But the most damaging testimony came from Jonathan's own brother, Joseph Quiles. The man who turned in his own flesh and blood walked to the witness stand carrying the weight of his decision.
His demeanor was a little off. It was kind of like he was nervous or a little panicky about something.
Have you heard your brother sound panicky to you on previous occasions?
No. It was more concerned about what is he going to do with the young lady in question. That she might be pregnant, and what is he going to do? He doesn't want to ruin his family and mess up what he has already.
He was panicky, Joseph testified about Jonathan's phone calls that December. Said she might be pregnant, and what was he going to do? He doesn't want to ruin his family. Then Joseph delivered the words that sealed his brother's fate.
In the vehicle, waiting, he tried to strangle her. It didn't work out. He couldn't stomach it. And so then he later went, shot her in the chest. And then he proceeded to discard the body by transporting it into a dumpster and destroying the vehicle.
The courtroom was dead silent. Here was a brother destroying his own family member to get justice for a murdered teenager.
Mr. Quiles, were you surprised by what he told you?
Absolutely.
Joseph had even sent Jonathan a text afterward.
I can't talk to you right now. I have to stay firm on my decision. What you told me isn't some joke or something you like about. So yes, I told the police because they needed to know. I'm sorry I have to do the right thing for that girl and her family, not the right thing for you and your selfishness. I hate to lose you, but I'd rather that the girl's family have some peace. If you're innocent, then you don't need to worry and they won't find her body. But if you're not, they're going to find her. And in that case,
prophetic words from a man who chose justice over blood. Then came the jailhouse recordings. the moment everyone had been waiting for. Prosecutors played Jonathan's own voice confessing to murder.
You shot her, how you killed her? You don't mind me asking, I'm just blunt. Yeah, I know. I know you don't really want to talk about it. It's all going to be able to get rid of the body.
See, I dump garbage over at the landfill. It'll be buried under like 3 feet of garbage.
8 of the 12 jurors turned and stared directly at Jonathan as his own words condemned him. You could see it in their faces. Any remaining doubt had evaporated. This wasn't testimony they had to evaluate or evidence they had to interpret. This was Jonathan Quiles in his own voice, admitting to murdering his pregnant niece. Jonathan had convicted himself with his own mouth. The jury deliberated for less than a day. When they returned, their faces told the story before they spoke a word.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Verdict count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. Verdict count 3. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of engaging in an act that constitutes sexual battery.
Jonathan showed no emotion. Even in defeat, he remained cold, calculating, unmoved by the destruction he'd caused. But the trial wasn't over. Florida still had to decide, life in prison or death.
Jonathan Quiles is now a 2-time convicted murderer. Each of you know the horrendous facts that occurred in this case. Each of you did justice when you convicted the defendant beyond a reasonable doubt of premeditated murder of IS and the premeditated murder of IS's unborn child. And we'll ask you all to render a vote of death.
The defense made one final plea.
We're asking you to save his life. Does he deserve it? You probably don't think so. But is there something there worth saving? Is there something there that would make you all come back and say life without the possibility of parole is appropriate?
They brought in family members, psychologists, character witnesses, anything to humanize the monster who'd murdered his own niece. The jury wasn't swayed by sympathy, but they also weren't convinced death was necessary. After deliberating on punishment, they returned with their decision.
We, the jury, find Jonathan Quiles should be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Life in prison without parole. Jonathan would spend every remaining day of his life in a cell, never again able to hurt another child, never again able to destroy another family. The judge made it official. 3 consecutive life sentences. Jonathan Quiles would die in prison. Outside the courthouse, Iyanna's mother Kimberly wore a t-shirt bearing the name Hazel Michelle, the granddaughter she would never meet.
Iyanna was full of life and wanted to do so many things. She wanted to be a pediatrician. I thought about being a lawyer. To my mom, she was going to be a lawyer because she could talk her way out of almost anything. She was everything you could ask for in a daughter. We were so close. She was my first love.
Through tears, she spoke about the daughter she'd lost. But perhaps the most haunting words came from Joseph Quiles, the brother who'd chosen justice over family loyalty. In that final text to Jonathan, he'd written something that captures the heart of this entire tragedy. "I hate to lose you, but I'd rather that girl's family have some peace." Joseph Quiles lost his brother forever when he made that phone call to police. But his courage gave Iyanna's family the one thing they needed most: the truth. Jonathan Quiles thought he was clever enough to commit the perfect murder. He planned every detail, covered every track, disposed of every piece of evidence. He manipulated his family, lied to police, and played the grieving uncle while Iyanna's mother begged for answers about her missing daughter. But Jonathan made one fatal error. He couldn't resist talking about what he'd done. His arrogance, his need to feel superior, his compulsive bragging, that's what destroyed him. Iyanna Sawyer was 16 years old when her trusted uncle drove her to an industrial yard and executed her for the crime of being pregnant. She thought they were running away together. Instead, she was running toward her death. Her unborn daughter Hazel never drew a breath, never felt her mother's love, never had a chance at the life Iyanna was so excited to give her. 2 lives ended because one man valued his reputation more than his family's trust. 2 futures destroyed because Jonathan Quiles believed some secrets were worth killing for. He was wrong. And now he'll spend the rest of his life paying for that mistake, while Iyanna's family lives forever with the consequences of his choices. The man who was supposed to protect her became the monster who destroyed her. That's the cruelest betrayal of all, and the reason why this case will haunt everyone who heard it. Some wounds never heal, some losses can never be replaced, and some evil can never be forgiven. Jonathan Quiles took everything from the Sawyer family, but in the end, justice took everything from him too. That's where this story ends, with a killer behind bars for life, and a family learning to live with a loss that can never be repaired. Remember Iyanna Sawyer. Remember Hazel Michelle. Remember that the people we trust most can sometimes hurt us the deepest. And remember that even when killers think they've gotten away with murder, the truth has a way of finding the light. Family should be a refuge, but even the closest ties can fracture. Stay alert, look out for one another, and reach out if you sense danger.